This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 403 for the week of May 8th, 2016. What is up? Welcome to Kanzenshuu, the podcast, an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site, Kanzenshuu. We cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit of entertaining. My name is Mike, I am Vegito EX. What else would we do right now? I'm recording the intro to this episode the evening of Monday, May 9th, Goku Day in Japan, because the news is all about... Hi, Meri.
Hi. I completely forgot it was Goku Day till it was on the internets, or maybe Piccolo Day.
Yeah,
May is awesome.
Meri, Trunks is coming back.
I know. I can't even handle it. There was that translation, I guess it was, or news post a while back where it was like alluded to. And I think I may have joked to you, like, if Trunks is coming back, oh my God, I think I might need to be a little more involved.
Because every episode is potentially someone's first episode.
Yes.
Who is Meri?
I'm your wife.
Well, that's true.
I've run this here household.
That is entirely accurate. However, in terms of Dragon Ball, who are you?
So, my name is Meri, Meredith, but on the internet, I go by my nickname, which is Meri, and starting in 1997 or 8, I actually can't remember. And
all the website archives at that time are lost, so who knows?
I know. I used to run a fan site called templeoftrunks.com. It was mostly comedy and image-based website all about Trunks, but pretty much everything else Dragon Ball was fair game. Posted news and other people's fanfics, because I myself am not a writer, but it's kind of a clearinghouse for anything and everything Trunks. I would say the biggest claim to fame of that site was a section called the Trunks Feature Films, in which I would stage action figures, not just Trunks, but all DBZ action figures, maybe sometimes special guest appearances by Sailor Moon action figures in hilarious and off-the-wall situations and script out stories featuring these toys. Good times. I pretty much was active with the site from mostly 98 through the mid-2000s. I was looking at my site today. It looked like I had one update in 2008, one update in 2007, and
were they just like, hey, sometimes I'm on the podcast?
That's, I did update the homepage of the site to kind of say, hey, if you want to find me, I'm with DaisyX these days. But the last two the last two content updates on the site were featuring some scans.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, hi. It's nice to have you for a little bit. We'll get back to you momentarily because I do want to tease what else is going on this episode, because this is a mishmash episode. Did not have this intro planned. Again, what else could we possibly do but this right here? Our topic this week, I was at Anime Fan Fest here in New Jersey this past weekend, and I recorded two fantastic interviews. The first of those two is coming at you as the topic this episode. That first interview is with Jason Thompson. Longtime Dragon Ball fans may recognize that name from the Viz days, a very long period of Viz days, actually. Jason came in as editor of the Dragon Ball manga and the Shonen Jump magazine.
Pretty awesome.
Right. So Jason and I talked about what it was like to be the editor of Dragon Ball in America. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
Pretty big boots.
Yeah.
To have to step in.
And we talked about he took over from Trish. That's another name people may recognize, and what his relationship was as editor versus the translator versus the rewriter, and what that meant heading into the Shonen Jump magazine, and what was going on in the Viz corporate environment at the time and how that affected the manga. Lots of great stuff there. Great discussion. That is coming at you as the topic this here episode. However, the news and the intro is one and the same this week. We cannot not talk about it. Meri, Trunks is coming back to Dragon Ball Super. As you kind of just alluded to, we got a tease of this pretty much 1 month ago when the first volume of Toyotaro's Dragon Ball Super manga adaptation came out, the collected edition. We got a joint interview with Toyotaro and Akira Toriyama himself, and there were a couple select quotes there. I would like to read those select quotes for you. So the interviewer asks, finally, could you tell us just a little bit about where the story of Dragon Ball is heading? And over in the book version of the interview, Toriyama says, I've got an idea for a story about the quote-unquote future of a quote-unquote a certain somebody. And I'm thinking of combining that together with a new universe. It'll be simple enough for kids to enjoy, hopefully. And Toyotaro says, a certain somebody. It's someone I'm a huge fan of. I'm really looking forward to it. Now, in conjunction with the interview interview that was in the book, Shueisha put up a separate version of the interview. Slightly different questions, slightly different answers. They put this up on their own website. Basically the same question. Toyotaro starts out and says, I've read the plot for the new story, and I'm really happy a certain future-related character is going to be involved. I'm a huge fan. And Toriyama followed that up saying, that's a pretty popular character. Hopefully the kids will be happy. Now, with future being in quotes, future-related character, we all naturally assumed it was going to be Trunks.
But God, wouldn't it have been so sucky to go in with that assumption and it turns out, no, it's something completely different. I mean, yeah, sure, it's 99% odds in our favor, but you can't help but wonder, what if things just don't play out the way you like? Then all the kids have broken hearts and Meri is crying in a corner.
All the kids.
I don't leave the house. I'm a mess.
So here we are, Meri. Very uncharacteristic of Toei. They got ahead of what were probably going to be print leaks and took control of the messaging themselves.
Huzzah,
and
I must say.
I know. And announced the future Trunks arc.
Yeah, buddy.
It's coming to Dragon Ball Super following what we're wrapping up now, the outcome of the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament. So let me read for you the announcement here on Toei's official website. On June 12th, 2016, Dragon Ball Super shows a new storyline. With Goku and the gang having finished up the tournament against Universe 6, Trunks returns from the future and appears before them. It's the start of the Future Trunks arc, a new plotline with story and characters based on an original draft by Akira Toriyama. After he defeated Cell, Trunks' future was supposed to be at peace, so why has he reappeared in the present? What is this new enemy in the future? The hotly anticipated new chapter starts June 12th. So looking at this overview here they provided, along with two character designs, we have Trunks in a slightly updated version of his old jacket look.
With a little extra something.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
And then a slightly casual version, just like a green
sweater, turtleneck
like
thing.
Military sweater kind of thing. Are we all assuming, and this is not an original thought, we're all assuming he took 17's scarf, right?
That's awesome. That'd be incredible.
That's really dark.
I love it. Let's see some dark ass Trunks.
I mean, he totally blew him away, so there shouldn't be anything remaining. But I mean, Bulma's wearing the red scarf in these current designs too, so I think that's just all he's really alluding to.
Like, I never even thought of that angle. I went the dark route because that is just so badass. Come on.
And we have to address, yes, he has blue hair here. That's probably not going to be what he looks like.
It's so funny. People flip to shit over that. It's like, I guess, I don't even follow the news that closely, but using the power of deductive reasoning and just a somewhat minimal amount of knowledge about Toriyama's designs. He's just so inconsistent with his coloring sometimes.
He always has been, yeah. Coloring's been different colors in the manga and that kind of stuff. Meri, this is something you would know about. Character designs, as they're done by the author, are changed and adapted before they get to the anime version. There will be someone, probably Yamamuro, who does the anime version of what this character design should be in terms of these are the official colors, these are the official proportions, that kind of stuff. We've seen this with Toriyama. This looks exactly like Toriyama's designs for things like the Frieza movie. It's not necessarily exactly what it's going to look like in animation. It's a guide for them to take and use. So yes, there's blue hair there. Does not allude to anything. Simmer down. That all being said, what do you think of the designs and what you've heard in Toei's announcement here? I think my big question for you, Meri, is why Trunks? Is this just... I really hesitate to use the word cash grab because Dragon Ball is made by a corporate entity. Its entire purpose is to make money. Is it a cheap grab?
It's a grab. I don't think it's a cheap grab. I think it's a long time coming grab.
Yeah.
I think... Hopefully, being optimistic here, they looked at what was going on in Xenoverse, and this is me projecting, saying, hey, we got this great character we have not used in years.
And that came from
my God,
online.
you can do so much with him.
Exactly, right.
He is basically Doctor Who in Dragon Ball form. I'm fine with the designs. I think they look cool. I love the red scarf.
Is your excitement clouding your judgment?
I don't know. I like to think I'm pretty level-headed even when I get damn excited.
Are you biased?
I am the artist formerly known as Bias. I just think, it's a cash grab. I mean, I work in marketing like you, so if you see an opportunity, take it.
Yep, of course.
At the same time, it's not like, hey, let's come up with another colored transformation. Ooh,
Sure.
boy, that to me is a cheapo cash grab. This is more, here's an underutilized character
Well,
we haven't touched in years.
Let me stop you there. Is he truly underutilized?
Yes.
Or have we done everything there is to do with Trunks? Isn't his character arc already complete by helping save this other timeline?
You can ask that question to the whole existence of Super.
Yeah, of course.
That's my answer.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, let's go on to Toriyama's comment here. There's a lot I could read. I'm not going to read the entire comment. You can read it on the homepage of the site. There's a couple key things I want to grab out of here, though. I'm just going to read the intro, and then we'll jump to the Black Goku.
Oh no! You said
So
it.
Toriyama starts with, next up in Dragon Ball Super, adult Trunks will be putting in his first appearance in a long time. I put together this story based on a suggestion from the editorial office. Like last time, I wrote an outline of the entire plot, then the scriptwriters break it up into episodes, expanding on things, changing things around, or adding in new bits as need be. This sounds slightly different from how he talked about what he had done previously, particularly with what he did in Battle of Gods in the Frieza movie, but even a little bit different from how he described what he did for the Universe 6 tournament story arc. This sounds more to me like they reached the end of what Toriyama had fully fleshed out and said, here's what we'd like to do. Similar to Battle of Gods, where they had the ideas for Super Saiyan God and God of Destruction, said, here's where we would like to go. Toriyama, can you take it from here? That feels slightly different from before. So I have a couple concerns about it, but at the same time, I like what Toei comes up with sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, this last block has been pretty fun.
Yeah.
I think the only area in which I'm concerned is the line about an idea from the editorial staff.
Yeah.
I think that might be the only thing that feels like marketing kind of push, like, hey, the kids like
committee.
Trunks, could you make this work?
Yeah.
I would hope that it wasn't just that and more of look at Xenoverse and pull from this any way you can.
Mm-hmm. Would you be accepting of, and I don't think they're going to do this because as we've seen with Dragon Ball Minus, even if Toriyama takes someone else's character, he'll do something entirely different with it. Would you be opposed to them basically telling the Xenoverse story?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think there's some room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see, I think if they're going to do what if stuff, that would be maybe better served as its own arc, but I get the sense from this description that it's not going to be anything like that.
Yeah, my impression seems to be it's not going to be the timeline is being changed. We need to go fix the Raditz fight like we did in Xenoverse. Mm-hmm. This sounds more like stuff is being affected, but we're all going to be the focus of it, not that time is going to be the focus of it. Could be entirely wrong. I have no idea. We're doing the same thing everyone else is doing, where we've known stuff for less than 24 hours and we're trying to theorize. I think that's dangerous sometimes.
It's mostly just fun.
It is fun. I think
Toriyama tends to do better when he does have editors. I guess it depends on the type of editor.
Yes and no. Yeah. Let's move on to the next point. And what about this foe too strong even for Trunks to handle? Black Goku. It's written in katakana. Katakana. Even Goku's name is Goku Buraku. Well, you can probably imagine what he's like just based off the name. Now, first off, let's just jump ahead of that. You can get some really racist connotations off of that. So I don't know if that's the best way to describe it.
Japan.
However, everyone seems to be going with it's going to be a dark, evil. I'm not happy that we have a potential what if evil dark Goku version. I don't know.
Not thrilled with that either.
It really felt to me like Universe 6 was not just Universe 7 with goatees.
I'm thinking of Star Trek.
Again, we don't have a whole lot to go off of, so I'm excited by some parts of this. I'm kind of turned off already by other parts of this.
I think it might be too soon.
It's way too soon. It's been less than a day since we got this information.
God, the fact that it's going to be June is pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're only about a month off from this, so that really tells me we're looking at another 4 or 5 episodes of let's just have fun, wrap up this
fun
stuff.
Filler.
You need that emotional relief coming off of a story arc. We got some new characters introducing this king of everything. Jake has coined Omni King, and it's out there, and we can't take it back. Omni King now.
Do you regret this?
No.
There was hesitation right there. I heard it.
I don't always agree with Jake, but I think I do. It's I'm coming around to it. I don't know. Hey, look, I'm not the one who's fluent in Japanese, so
true.
What do I know?
You're just a ringleader.
Meri, what else can we say about this right now? I'm glad to have you along for the ride.
I feel glad to have a vested interest in the fandom again.
Yeah.
I would say in the span of 12 hours, I've come around to being like, oh yeah, Dragon Ball Super, I'll watch it occasionally.
I mean, you already...
Holy shit, I am 17 years old again.
Why does Trunks still interest you in 2016?
I don't know if it's that Trunks himself interests me or the feeling of being so committed to an entity, both as a character in my website and the community and the fandom. Just that was such a special time that even capturing a tiny essence of that is just wow, I want to go balls to the wall, crazy obsessive about something beyond what I do with my everyday typical life. It's just like a time capsule.
Something I want to put in context for people. As popular as Kanzenshuu EX was, at the heyday of when we were both running sites at the same time, you were regularly doing 3 to 4 times the traffic I was.
Yeah, people, you gotta listen to this man. He just owned up.
I mean, character shrines at that time were massive. Why do you think that was? I'm interviewing you.
Wow, and you're asking me to think about things that was half my lifetime ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard.
I didn't prep you for this.
I know, I like it.
I just fall into interview mode.
I'm just mostly flattered right now. Why were character shrines big at the time?
I mean, there's a couple levels to it. I really felt like there was a very even split with male and female webmasters.
I was gonna get to the gender thing.
And why do you think character shrines were?
I think
so
girls
important?
had a tendency to make character shrines more than their male counterparts, but I think what made Temple of Trunks a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Crossover appeal.
You were a little more general than it lets on at first.
Yes and no.
Like with the feature films. I mean, Trunks was the focus, but you assigned caricatures to everyone.
Oh yeah, people would give me shit for my portrayal of Vegeta, which cracks me up because Vegeta's my second favorite character. I love Vegeta. And Supra's just kind of validating my opinions about him 20 years later.
Right.
Yes, this is brilliant.
What you do with him. Right.
I was right all along. He's so awesome. What was the question? Why do you think why character shrines? I think but anime was blowing up in the US huge at the time, and I think not only was there an appetite for fan sites in general, but I think as websites tended to be more like, oh, let's post these same pictures over and over and over again.
Differentiate
character
yourself.
Sites were a way to kind of be a little bit more unique and create more original content.
Yeah.
And people, especially otaku, I'm the first one to admit, we're pretty damn obsessive. We find something we like, we're going to latch onto it obsessively. I guess that's it. Crossover appeal, regular updates. I was at a point where I was making an update every day. And that was while being in high school. When I think about doing homework and doing sports, and it's just, how did I have the time to make this content? It kind of blows my mind.
Like, I think I'll just lay on the couch.
I was going to sit here and play my DS and chill and maybe pet a cat.
All right, let's bring this to a close. We've been talking, my raw recording is like 20 minutes. I have no idea what this is going to end up being. This is just supposed to be the short intro to the episode.
No.
Meri, I'm sorry. I have a real interview to get
okay.
to.
This is just like your pre-show.
Yes.
I'm the warm-up act, people.
You are the warm-up act.
I am the warm-up. We'll come
Jason
back.
Thompson.
I want to come back for like a real Trunks episode. Maybe when the episodes start.
I've pitched them to you over the years.
But now I have a legit reason to give a shit. Okay?
All right.
This is going to be great.
All right. Fair enough. So whether you want it or not, more Meri's coming at you on the podcast.
That's fair. Take it or leave it, people.
That's right.
I don't care.
All right. So Meri, thank you.
You're welcome.
We will see and hear more of you in the future, clearly. You've started...
right.
You think you want to
I guess I should talk about that.
Temple of Trunks?
Yeah, so...
You just randomly decided
I did.
Today.
And I was texting you, and I was like, I just signed up for social media accounts for everything. What have I done? So, the news...
Mike, send me press assets.
Mike, send me... Yeah, pretty much. So I was at work and on Twitter reading all this news, and it's blowing my mind. I can't believe what I'm reading. And I'm just reading people talk about stuff. I'm like, holy crap. would be pretty cool to bring back Temple of Trunks. This would be a great time, but I can't commit to that. I don't even remember the login to my site. My site never made it over to a content management system. It's all still in raw HTML. I am not taking that on as a project. Sorry, people. But I'm going to meet in the middle because it's 2016 and we are in the future. And the future is the social medias. So I'm happy to resurrect
the 5 years ago is the social media.
I know. I'm like so with it. If I do bring it back Temple of Trunks, it's going to be in the lazy form of either Twitter or Instagram or Tumblr. I have never used Tumblr before. I'm not cool like that. But
maybe you'll want to be on Tumblr.
But I would be ripe for image content. And if I end up going the comedy route, that's I'm going to preface this by saying I'm going to treat this as one giant experiment. It might just be me, at the very least, live tweeting during the episodes. Hardcore version of this experiment is I'm creating new, like, creative, humor-based content. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well,
we'll see. But you can find Temple of Trunks on Twitter at Temple of Trunks.
That's Temple
O Trunks.
All right.
Because she just got real.
Your act is over now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up is our actual interview this episode with Jason Thompson from Anime Fan Fest in New Jersey. We talked about the Dragon Ball manga from Viz and lots of other cool stuff. I'll see you on the flip side. We are here live in the sales and catering office administration room at the hotel across the street at Anime Fan Fest. I got Jason Thompson. How are you?
Hey, man. I'm doing great.
It's great to have you here. You are a name that I have known for a very long time in conjunction with Dragon Ball, which is kind of funny. You didn't write Dragon Ball.
No, I wish I had. I wish I had written and or drawn Dragon Ball. It would be it'd be quite an honor.
It's really funny because I think back to when Viz was first releasing the manga. I don't know if you remember this. There's one of the four guys that works on Kanzenshuu with me. His name is Julian. He was 15 years old at the time when he did this.
Oh my gosh.
He created a petition that I believe got sent to you at some point. He wanted to get Dragon Ball released uncensored here in America.
Oh, yeah. Well, at first it was released uncensored for a very short period of time. And then what happened is that it had been picked up by Toys R Us. And some parents,
I remember that well.
Some parents noticed the whole puff and the whole naked Goku wandering around, and they didn't like it too much. So then Viz kind of freaked out and decided to re-release Dragon Ball censored. We actually had reporters calling the office. We were instructed not to talk to. So that was kind of exciting.
Hysterical.
Yeah, I started editing Dragon Ball.
Well, we'll come back to it. I want to do
rewind
loop here.
Okay.
Yeah. So take me back to the beginning. I see you online these days. I think Jason Thompson is into horror and zombies and Lovecraft. Where did it all start for you? Like the general nerddom?
Gosh, I mean, really, my earliest memories, right? I mean, I was always into science fiction movies and books and comics. I mean, I didn't discover anime or manga until I was a teenager because, I mean, there really wasn't anything on television or in video stores. I grew up I was born in 1974, so it wasn't until I was in late high school that some companies started to, like ADV and other people started to release anime. I mean, I realized now that some of my favorite Western cartoons that I liked in the 80s, like G.I. Joe and Transformers and Thundercats, and even DuckTales were actually animated by like animation studios in Japan, which is why they looked good. But yeah, there wasn't really anything available. And I mean, I was aware of Speed Racer and stuff like that, but that just is such an older style. I just wasn't really into it,
Yeah. So how about anime and manga in general? Was it a natural transition for you off of all that?
Yeah. I mean, I went to college, and I discovered the anime club, and I was in a gaming club, and some of the same people were in both clubs, and so I sort of kind of followed them into the anime club. And I think the first anime I ever watched was Ranma 1/2, followed by Akira. It was that
was the time for those shows.
Yeah, the early 90s, and Akira was pretty awesome, and I really loved it. But I think Ranma 1/2 was more mind blowing. The fact, the whole like romantic comedy and the like gender bending, like transgender-ish fantasy stuff was like so unlike anything I'd ever seen before, right? Because I mean, Akira, sure, it's got a great animation and it's really crazy, but I mean, post-apocalyptic stuff, science fiction, psychic powers, that was stuff I was all really,
sure,
that was my bag. But it was actually shows like Maison Koku and Video Girl Eye that it really I really got into, because it was kind of like a traditional, like, I mean, nerdiness there, at the time had like, I was there has this traditionally masculine stereotype associated with it, where like no one was like admitting to being into these like soap operas and these like romantic things, and so that was really the first time that I'd ever like allowed myself to be into something like that, so that was really more life changing in a way than shows with cyborgs and ninja and stuff, the kind of stuff that like companies like Manga Entertainment may build their companies on in the early 90s when anime started hitting video stores in a big way.
Right. So it was Dragon Ball. I mean, Dragon Ball kind of spun out of Ranma in some ways. I mean, you think about what Viz was producing on the anime side, what they were doing on the manga side, Ocean Studios being involved with all of these productions. So they just kind of fall into your lap the same way?
Well, I was actually hired by Viz to edit a video game magazine in 1996. And that was this is my first job out of college. And and it was a very short-lived magazine.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. But then they in their infinite wisdom decided that I should stick around. And I started doing some other stuff for them, and eventually editing some of their manga. And of course, this isn't manga editing the way it is in Japan, where you're actually like part of the producer who's organized, changing the story direction of the manga and so on. This is like localization. And I think I started out with series that were kind of not as important, like the Night Warriors manga, Darkstalkers, or manga, and eventually I started. They trusted me on the bigger titles, and Trish Ladeau at the time was editing Dragon Ball, and at this point I'd really become into Dragon Ball, and I was like, oh, if you ever need some help reading letters from Dragon Ball from fans, because we were at this point getting tons of physical mail once we started doing the series. We were just getting boxes and boxes of letters. Mostly from kids who drawing their like versions of Super Saiyan 5 Goku or whatever, right?
I want to put this in time. I was telling you before we started recording, it was you that I found that posted the press release from Viz in 1998, I believe it was, announcing that Viz was putting out the Dragon Ball manga. So we're 2 years out from Funimation doing Z. We did Dragon Ball in 95, DBZ in 96. So there was already a pretty sizable fan base. And I know me at the time, we were so excited. We're finally going to be able to read the comic here, too. So to hear that you were already getting tons of letters, I'm not really surprised by that point.
Well, it was an interesting period of time for Dragon Ball, right? Because it came out in, 95 or 96, the anime. But if I recall, it didn't quite blow everyone's minds on the syndicated broadcast.
Yeah, we got 13 of Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, this isn't working.
Oh, yeah. And then they skipped straight to Dragon Ball Z.
Straight to
wisely,
Z.
I guess.
I think back, and I actually tell people it did better than you think it did. The second season of syndication got an hour-long block.
Dragon Ball Z
on the weekend. And it was still before Pokemon at that point.
That's true.
It was doing well, but then, the combination of Funimation and Saban, things just kind of crumbled there for a little bit.
It was kind of scary for a while when we stopped in the middle of the Namek saga, and then it seemed like what was going to go on. We were already doing the manga then, so we knew we were
That's why we were excited. Like, Funimation implodes, we can at least rely on Viz to get us the story there. Tell me a little bit about, so you came on as editor for Dragon Ball?
Yeah.
So what was your role taking over from Trish? And I have a question about Trish. We'll get to that in a little bit. Question that's on everyone's mind. I say everyone's, like all the 5 people who care about this little question.
Ooh, okay. I hope it's a good question.
So what is your role as an editor, or was your role, versus someone like, I believe it was Gerard Jones, who was doing the translation or the adaptation? Like, how did
the actual translators of Dragon Ball were Mari Morimoto. The time we were doing Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z simultaneously.
Right.
And I believe that the translator for Dragon Ball was Mari Morimoto, and the translator for Dragon Ball Z was Lillian Olsen. Okay. And Viz at the time also, traditionally since the 80s, Viz had always hired these people called rewriters, right?
Right.
And this dated back, this was 2 things. First off, when Viz first started in like 87, both of the founders of the company were, they were originally from Japan. And I feel that they weren't, and so was Satoru Fuji and Seiji Horobuchi, and they weren't entirely confident with, doing the English localization themselves.
That was a trend at the time. Everyone was a little hesitant about, how much do we want to keep it as is, but the reason it's popular is because it's different. So how do we approach this?
Yeah, I mean, it's still something that goes on today, right? The solution they came up with was that I think they teamed up with these people like Gerard Jones, who did the Dragon Ball and Ranma 1/2 localization. He was originally an American comics writer.
Okay.
And I think he still does. I don't know if he's still doing any work in that, but that was kind of one of the other reasons they hired him was he's like, well, I know the world of American comics, and also there's people will be fans of me, Gerard Jones, and they will pick up your comic Dragon Ball,
So
I mean,
recognition there.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think they ended up he and Fred Burke and the other people that they hired as rewriters. A lot of them ended up doing much more work in manga, not so much in American comics. Although strangely, some people who've been hired as letterers and rewriters, like Kelly Sue DeConnick, then now they don't do any more work for Viz, and now they're like comic book big shots.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of interesting. Anyways, yeah. So the literal translators would turn in their work, Meri and Lillian, and then their styles varied. Like Meri always did lots of variant translations for everything. Her translations are full of she had full of parenthetical notes and stuff. Lillian did and does.
Sounds like some of the folks that work for us on Kanzenshuu, Julian in particular. He's always got it's not quite this, and like the pluralization here. Like, oh, what do I do with this? And
Lillian she's great. They're both great. Lillian has a little more of a conventional translation style where she pretty much just does something that you could just use straight up, but occasionally she'll put a note about something that's really questionable. And neither of them translated the sound effects particularly, other than like writing them out in English. Because I don't think the Viz rewriters could read katakana. So anyways, Gerard Jones came to that, and he would just basically rewrite stuff out more colloquially, and it's the same as all the Viz rewriters did at the time. And he also was involved in some of the name decisions.
Sure.
But on the other hand, some of those were sort of based on what Funimation was doing, but more of them were not. I think we had a little more freedom, and we weren't totally coordinated.
Yeah, I remember early on, kind of made a point to say we are using Kuridin, we are using Tenshinhan.
Yeah, exactly.
We are absolutely
it's Kuridin, not
it.
Krillin.
Right.
It's not a shrimp.
But then we would get to things like Hercule would end up being used instead of Mr. Satan. It's like, well, that was influenced by Funimation, but I could also see why you guys were doing it.
Well, that's because things changed a lot over time.
Yeah.
I mean, Dragon Ball basically went through several mini phases, and this is just a sort of the change in the corporate culture of Viz, and based on what was going on in the market. Is at some points it would be it'd be very cautious about stuff, and they'd be more prone to censor stuff, and at other times there was just more loosey-goosey and whatever, and
so what was your role as an editor in all that?
My role was basically to I'd go over Gerard's stuff to cross-check stuff with my own limited knowledge of Japanese, to basically double-check everything once it had been lettered, and to how it looked, whether there was any obvious errors. And to do all this name decisions, and to answer all the letters from 12-year-old kids.
I remember the letters. Yeah, it was fun.
So not like what an editor does in Japan, definitely.
Sure.
But sort of more like it's more like a phase in the production pipeline.
So you took over from Trish?
Yes.
At some point? So the question that's weighed down on our minds for so many years, and you got to help us get to the bottom of this.
All right.
Real early on, when Piccolo is speaking, he's got this old English Shakespearean, dost thou know, why'st thou answering this way?
Yeah.
What was up there?
Well, I think that was just Gerard Jones' decision, but I think basically
we always blamed it on Trish.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't Trish, but I honestly don't know for sure. It's been a long time. But I think in any case, by the time I was editing it, he really hardly did that at all. And I think maybe you really have to ask Trish or maybe him, but I think Trish probably sort of pushed it back a little bit. And by the time I took over, which wasn't until like the fourth volume of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, Piccolo was pretty much. I mean, he wasn't like, "Yo, dude, what's up, bro?"
Right.
But he was pretty much talked like most of the other characters. I mean, Goku still had a more like slangy, colloquial, like he talks like a little boy, right?
Right.
But Piccolo, no, I mean he's it wasn't so forced. So yeah.
All right, that helps a little bit. It's good to know like someone made a decision and someone said maybe let's change it a little bit.
Yeah, but it wasn't me. It was already it had already changed. It was only like the first volume. It's only about the first Tankobon or something where he's going like that.
So take me a little further here. So Dragon Ball, we initially got the monthly floppies. We started getting into graphic novel stuff, and eventually we get into Shonen Jump as a magazine from Viz.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. At the time, Viz had gotten the Pokemon license in 1999, and Pokemon, of course, did super well for Viz and became not only their best-selling comic to date, but for a brief time, the #1 comic in the U.S. So suddenly Viz, which had previously been doing just okay. I mean, a title like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z were among Viz's best-selling titles, but I think for most of their run, they only sold like around 10,000 copies a piece.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I think they may have started out at like double that, but the way it was with the collectible comic market, was that these things people would buy the first issue and then sales.
It always drops after that. Yeah.
So those are good numbers for Viz. I'm sure they were disappointing as hell to Shueisha.
Right.
It so often happens when like super popular Japanese comics are licensed in the U.S. and people are like, why doesn't anybody like Ultimate Muscle in the U.S. or whatever, Right. Where were we?
So that's fine. We're talking about the transition to the Shonen Jump magazine.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
How did things change in the pipeline there?
Oh, yes. Let me puff on my pipe here and sit back on my couch and talk about the olden days. All right. So back 1999, Viz had done Pokemon. So for a few years, they coasted on Pokemon, but then Pokemon started to dry up a little bit and Viz was trying to figure out something else to do. And they wanted to do the magazine market was still a thing then. Obviously, there's some magazines that still do well, but it was a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger then than it is now. And
economy's still well.
Yeah. And for a while, they wanted to do a video game magazine like in the style of Nintendo Power and do like really young children's manga, like from Koro Comic.
Got it.
But then that was ultimately they decided against that, which I think is a good thing because that it's just not much.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at like Doraemon, they tried to do in the U.S.
I don't see that.
That stuff that's aimed at that young an audience. It just doesn't work. So basically, we realized that the Shonen Jump had all the great titles, and we wanted to publish Shonen Jump manga. But even though Viz was doing Dragon Ball, Viz is owned by was traditionally then owned by Shogakukan, which in Japan is sort of a rival to Shueisha, and so the relationships were always a little tense.
Yeah, I can see that.
There was always there's always a lot of licensor demands that we didn't agree with, and a certain amount of it wasn't super easy. Anyways, but we really wanted to publish the Shonen Jump titles because we knew that most of them were just really golden titles. I mean, this is the time when stuff like Naruto is just starting up, One Piece, Shaman King, Yu-Gi-Oh, So
and not entirely, a couple years old, but to us it still seemed very
totally new. So, anyways, Viz wanted to do a magazine that was called. They wanted to do like a Shonen Jump-esque magazine, and so they tried a couple of names like I think Raijin magazine had started around that time. So I think Viz was actually feeling some pressure from Raijin, even though Raijin ended up bombing terribly. So Viz was considering doing a magazine called like Typhoon and stuff like that. I'm not kidding. So but eventually they finally decided that Shonen Jump was just the best name because it just had the coolness, it had the appeal, and Tokyo Pop had proven by this point that you could do this very you didn't have to hide the Japaneseness of things, right?
Yeah, it was cool to put it up front there now.
Yeah, totally. So I think it was actually a marmarketing guy at Viz who decided that we should just call it Shonen Jump as opposed to something else.
To say, the name.
Amazingly. He was actually pretty darn smart because he also foresaw digital distribution a lot longer than he was talking about that a lot longer than anyone else I knew. But I forgot his name. So anyways, so eventually Viz decided, let's call it Shonen Jump. But that meant that they had to actually work closely with Shueisha, and Shueisha ended up buying part of Viz, and it became a co-owned company. All right, this incredibly long explanation leads to the point that eventually Dragon Ball, the comic, ended, and we pushed it into Shonen Jump.
Right.
And there we are.
I remember they went through the end of the Cell arc, and at that point, you're like, well, still a lot more, but Naruto's kind of popular. It's like, well, we'll do Dragon Ball in graphic novels and bring it back occasionally for a feature.
Yeah.
So how long were you there at Viz overseeing Dragon Ball? To the end?
I edited Dragon Ball to the end. I think I was actually a freelancer when the last volume came out because I left Viz in 2006. Okay. And I don't remember when volume 42 of DBZ or 26 in the Viz version came out, but I believe it was I think I might have edited it remotely. But yeah, I looked over the entire series.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Dragon Ball with you. I actually pulled a couple of quotes from you have so many things you can talk about. Manga, The Complete Guide.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I hope, okay.
I grabbed a couple choice quotes here.
Sweat drop. All right.
So you said Dragon Ball was the model for almost every Shonen Jump series that followed. breaking away from the humorless machismo of the previous title holder, Fist of the North Star.
A little harsh of me, but okay, go on.
It shows a playful Jackie Chan-like spirit, and instead of punishing his defeated opponents, Goku almost invariably befriends them, turning them into good guys. That's a pretty good description of Dragon Ball right there.
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
Something clearly that jumped out at you was that, we have this ever-growing cast of characters, and yet they all become friends.
Yeah.
You said Akira Toriyama's artwork was unique for an action series for its time, giving his mishmash fantasy world a cartoony, welcoming look. That's what drew me in, was what I love about Toriyama is there's not really any shading. Maybe you get a little bit in the background, but everything's very open. It's either white or it's black on that page there. And while it's cartoony, welcoming, it's such a great word to describe.
Yeah, I think he's an incredible artist. I'm gonna confess something really embarrassing here, and that's the first time that I read Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
I wasn't that impressed by the artwork. I was like, this writing, this storytelling is good.
Right.
These fights are great, but if only it was a little more detailed. If only it was had a little more screen tone. If only And but that was just my foolishness. Because I was like, at the time I was really into stuff like Akira, Battle Angel, Alita, Masamune Shirow. The traditional like science fiction-y.
Yeah, great artwork.
Yeah. And also, but of course, Dragon Ball sort of, not Dragon Ball beginning, but the later part is sort of science fiction-y. Yep. And Dr. Slump, he loves it. He loves the science fiction, obviously.
Crazy. Yeah, there's more science fiction in the comedic Dr. Slump stuff than there is in some of the sci-fi Dragon Ball stuff.
Yeah. They're both great series. And he's, when I met Toriyama at the Shonen Jump launch party in 2002 in New York, I was like, oh, I love Dragon Ball. And he's like, oh, have you read Dr. Slump? Because that's what he's really proud of. He really
your meeting with Toriyama.
Yeah, I know. He really loves Dr. Slump, but he did draw Piccolo for me, so that's great.
Oh, that's amazing. You still have that?
I do.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned Dr. Slump there. There's one more quote I want to read here. This is something you wrote on your House of a Thousand manga for Anime News Network. Mm-hmm. The first great thing about Dragon Ball, and this is a list of things, is that it's an action manga drawn by a gag manga artist. Maybe even drawn reluctantly, against his will. That is 100% true.
That's what I've heard. You hear, for instance, like he wanted Dragon Ball Z, the anime, to be called Z, to imply that it's about to end, right? This is the ending, the final, but not at all, buddy.
So tell me more about Dragon Ball. As you began to edit it and really take, at that point, it would be a very close look at the series. One jumped out at you. What do you think makes it this iconic series that, we're more than 30 years out from Dragon Ball's inception, and it's still massive. Why is that?
Well,
tough question, I know.
It's hard to know where to start. It's good for a lot of reasons. I think, he's a really good writer for these fights and cliffhangers. It's really, even like in early Dragon Ball, it's really heartbreaking watching Tao Pai Pai freaking kill everybody, and then Goku finally comes along and saves them, or like when Piccolo destroys the entire city by flexing his bicep,
Right.
So I really think that's great. And and Toriyama always talks about how contrary he is when he's in interviews, So there's a certain, it's original, it's original in a way that he has like, he has like the stuff where he'll like, in the Ginyu saga, it's all about when's the Goku going to show up and save everybody. And also in like the Nappa and Frieza attack, when's the Goku going to show up and save everybody. And then like when Frieza comes back and he's coming to Earth as a cyborg, you think he's setting it up for that, but no, Trunks shows up and kills everybody instantly, and that's little things like that. There's I think also the whole like who's tougher than who thing that's very appealing, particularly if you're a kid or have a childish mind like me. It's very it lends itself very well to kind of the sort of handbook of the Marvel universe, who's stronger, kind of role play and imagination stuff. It's hard to, this is an endless question. I think also his art is great. And it's kind of hard to see how great it is now because it's been so absorbed by other people, right?
Right.
That whole sort of like, really young looking, spiky haired, the bright, colorful thing. It's just very,
you're just
it's everywhere,
8 different series. You can jump right now by saying
sure. So, and it really, and it totally was a breakaway from the, Tsukasa Hojo and the Tetsuo Hara, manly manga that was big
Right.
then too.
What do you think Dragon Ball took from that manly stuff, though? Because it feels like it's still in there.
What I'd always heard, and you kind of quoted before, is that some Japanese editor said this. I think it was one of the Raijin editors. Said that Fist of the North Star is based on Bruce Lee. Although I don't really get it because Fist is so just like a block of wood, you know. And like
Yeah,
Bruce
right,
Lee, I think of
right.
like, I mean, he's strong, but he's also he's little and he's fast, and you know, right? He has expressiveness, which Fist doesn't have. Anyways, enough about Fist of the North Star. Yeah, but basically, Fist is Bruce Lee, and Dragon Ball is Jackie Chan. That's what
It's playful. It's self-aware about itself.
But still, they're both martial arts things.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of I suspect there's probably, if we went back to like the early 80s and 70s, there's probably other martial arts manga that haven't stayed as popular over the years. They were probably also influential to both of them. You know, I mean, there's always been fighting manga for a long time. Although it was more of I think it was more of like the tough the tough bonchos and boxers and stuff. It had a more of a sportsy or street culture vibe as opposed to the full on crazy superhero stuff that Dragon Ball introduced, right?
Right.
At least that's the impression I have. But I'm not I'm not confident that I'm aware of all the things that were floating around in the sea of manga way back then. You know?
Yeah. Let's jump to the future again. Here we are in 2016. Viz completed the manga. They completed it again. Mm-hmm. They completed it again.
Color.
Multiple times there. You know, there's a reason for that, and one is obviously it keeps selling. Now, I would never ask you to speak poorly of any decisions, and you know, I hate to ask a leading question.
I don't work for this anymore.
Right,
so go
exactly.
Ahead. Go ahead.
So what do you think about a series like Dragon Ball being constantly released? The way, the hardest of hardcore Dragon Ball fans look at it, the Viz manga, it's pretty good. It's got some issues. We have some censorship in areas. Something we're dealing with right now with the 3-in-1s, which is the latest release of the series.
Oh, are they censored more?
They were advertised as uncut and uncensored.
Oh, no.
And consistently in every volume, there's been something. And it's not just things like, the boobs slipped by or Goku's Winkies. Get in there again. I know the most recent one, it's the end of the Cell arc. It's Trunks going back to his future. In the initial printing, 17's gun, where he's kind of like threatening this old man, was edited into a fist. That's still here in the 3-in-1.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, so we're still kind of dealing with that stuff.
Well, you'll have to talk to whoever's the editor at Viz.
Right,
I wish
can you give us a good word somewhere? Like, how do we push this along?
Well, I really don't know. I mean, I really don't have any. I haven't worked for Viz for years, so I don't really have any. I mean, I know some people there, but I'm just in the same position you are.
It's the struggle of the Dragon Ball fan. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is we always have. It's so close. We never quite got that perfect Dragon Ball product.
Well, for a while it was completely uncensored. I know there's completely uncensored versions out there of most of the story, but I did know by the later Dragon Ball Z, Viz was getting more worried again, and so things like the gun, and also the later scene in the Buu arc when the two like rich jerks are going around gunning people down with machine guns. Not only that, but they're gunning down like Middle Eastern looking people and a dog. So it's really it's doubly screwed up. I mean, of course they're obviously the bad guys, so it's not but still, it's very, the Viz is very scared of the guns. So I think they actually kept that, but they changed it into like a laser gun.
I think it was laser blasters.
It'd be impossible to remove the entire sequence.
So I guess, and there's not really a question there. It's more just that we're in 2016 and we still kind of hope. Do you think there's a chance? Could we ever get that perfect?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, I can't predict the future, but I do think. I mean, Dragon Ball is pretty. It's lasted 30 years now, so it's pretty. Right. I mean, who knows? Maybe in another 10 years, everyone will be really into dark and gritty comics, and they'll be releasing the super extra violent Dragon Ball. I don't know, but I mean, on the other hand, some things you just got to assume are not gonna get changed, like like Mr. Popo, who she removed the like horrible blackfacey lips and just made him look more like a space alien. Just
to your credit, I actually didn't notice that for years.
Well,
so that was kind of okay one.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, manga localization is localization is always a challenge. Of course, it'd be really interesting to see what it would be like now, because with so much simulpubs, right, with Jump and with Crunchyroll and stuff like that. But of course, on the other hand, now also the major shonen magazines. I mean, there's still lots of pervy and weird stuff, mostly for seinen. But the major shonen magazines are much tamer than they were in the '80s, and you don't see
Fist and Little Star isn't there anymore.
Yeah, you don't see nudity. You certainly don't see. I mean, they never were big on guns, but you don't see a lot of. Yeah. You don't see so much sex, and you don't see so much friggin' exploding heads and stuff, and it's a shame. It's a shame, but oh well.
So tell us a little bit about what you have going on. I mean, I mentioned Manga: The Complete Guide. You do lots of great artwork and publications out there. What do you have?
Well, I do a lot of illustration work for Wizards of the Coast for their website. I mean, I've always been into gaming and particularly tabletop games, as anyone who's follows me at Mockman at Twitter surely knows. And I actually managed to combine my love of manga and tabletop gaming recently into Mangaka, the fast and furious game of drawing comics, which is my Pictionary-like tabletop game where you draw a manga or comic, if you will. So that's actually coming out in August from Global Games Distribution and Japanime Games. And yeah, I'm really happy and excited about that. I actually spent part of last week silk screening 70 hachimaki, 70 headbands that say manga on them, which we got a Japanese sumie calligrapher to write the word manga.
Nice.
Which, as far as I know, is the only headband with the word manga that you can buy in the entire universe.
That sounds great.
So
that sounds very 1997 to me somehow.
You should come to the yes, it does, doesn't it? But you never see, but it's actually the kanji for manga.
Okay.
It's not the word manga. It's not like manga entertainment, it's not
manga entertainment who produces TV shows.
Exactly. It's just the straight up kanji. But yeah, you should come to the Mangaka panels tomorrow at 11. Which is going to be totally irrelevant to everyone who hears this.
Yeah, I probably won't have it up by tomorrow
when it comes out. But yeah, no, I'm working on that and illustration and some other gaming and comic stuff.
I mean, I see all these titles out there. King RPGs, Stiff. I mean, if people want to learn more, Twitter, great way to do it.
Twitter's great. I'm also at mockman.com, mockman.com.
Well, I got Jason Thompson here. Anything else you want to leave for the Dragon Ball fans? I mean, it's been a while since you've been in the Dragon Ball world, but we're all still here.
I just want to do that. I'm doing that Tenshin Hands triangle blast at the microphone right now. I forget what it's called though. So.
Kikoho.
Thank you.
There you go.
See how long it's been. All right. Kamehameha.
Hey, Meri, let's wrap up the show because you're still here.
Oh, wow.
Recording and editing and that kind of stuff. Ooh. So a reminder, Temple of Trunks on Twitter, at least for now.
Yes.
All right.
And then personally is Meri TOT. That one has been there for years. And, templeoftrunks.com still exists. It's just, barren. No, I shouldn't say barren.
It's exactly as it was.
Lots of stuff. It just has not been touched since 2008.
I was talking with Joe Tanuki, which was great to see him at the convention this weekend. And I was explaining, and he was flabbergasted that the way you did those videos was not with a digital camera, but with a camcorder that you then video captured and then took screenshots from.
Yeah, we didn't have a digital camera back then. When we did finally get a digital camera, it was towards the tail end of my making feature films. And when we got that digital camera, I was like, where have you been all my life? Yeah. It shaved hours off the process. Because when I would make a feature film, I don't think people realized it took, granted, I was a teenager with unlimited time, but it would take a full weekend. Like, let's say I scripted it on a Friday, shot it, and staged it on a Saturday, and wrote the thing and took the screenshots and put it up on the website on a Sunday. It was a 2.5 day affair in teenage years.
Well, it's good to have you back.
It's good
Never
to
really
be
left,
back.
but
Good
don't call it a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback.
Been here for years.
Been here for years.
All right.
Now with more boxing, though.
So that's Meri. I am still Mike, Vegito EX. And this is Kanzenshuu. You were not a part of Kanzenshuu.
I thought I was like a mascot or a de facto member. Come on. I'm your SEO consultant. I'm always telling you what you should be doing.
Forget SEO. You're more like CEO in many ways.
Yes. I'm also your finance department.
A little bit. We're done here. So that's Meri. I'm Mike. We got Julian. We got Jake. We got Heath. www.kanzenshuu.com. Next time on the show, which hopefully will be next week as well, I have another interview coming your way. I'm not going to tease it just yet.
Oh, you should.
Oh, it's so good. We talked a little bit about marking this episode. Going to hear a lot more about that next episode. Pay attention to the social medias and all that for teases of what I got coming to your ears next week. So that's it. This has been episode... I don't actually know.
403.
403. Thank you for paying attention, Meri. 403 of our podcast. We will see you next time for 404. It's been a pleasure. Meri, wrap it up.
You've been listening to Kanzenshuu the podcast. We'll catch you next time. Bye.